Welcome to the DOGE Diaries, diving deep into government efficiency. So, are we ready to dive into this mess? Because it feels like a mess, right?
Feels like a dumpster fire, honestly. I mean, we're talking about promises of trillions in savings, and it looks like they pulled the numbers out of thin air.
But isn't it beautiful in a way? The sheer audacity of aiming for such monumental change? I mean, even if the execution is flawed, the vision itself is inspiring. Wouldn't you agree?
Inspiring? It's misleading. I mean, the Financial Times report basically says DOGE wildly overstated their savings. We're talking about billions of dollars in discrepancies. How can we trust anything if the numbers are just made up?
Exactly. And it's not just about the numbers being wrong, it's about where those cuts are being made. I read about NIOSH, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. They were supposed to lose like 90% of their workforce. That's insane.
But that's precisely where visionary leadership comes in, Otto. Sometimes you have to make difficult choices, even unpopular ones, to achieve a greater goal. Streamlining, optimizing, it's all part of the process of building a better future.
Streamlining by gutting an agency that keeps workers safe? I don't know, man. Seems like a pretty short-sighted way to save a buck.
And it's not even saving a buck. The Penn budget model says government spending has actually increased since DOGE started. So where's the efficiency? Where's the benefit?
Perhaps the increased spending is a necessary investment in infrastructure, Sarah, in technology, in the very systems that will eventually lead to even greater efficiency. It's about planting the seeds for future prosperity, not just reaping immediate rewards.
Easy to say when you're not the one getting the axe. I mean, we can talk about grand visions all day, but what about the hundreds of people who lost their jobs at NIOSH? What about the families struggling to make ends meet because of these supposed efficiency measures?
And it's not just job losses. Remember that article about the real estate lease cuts? They claimed $660 million in savings, then kept revising it down and down until it was a fraction of that. It's like they're just throwing numbers at the wall and seeing what sticks.
But even if the savings are overstated, doesn't it highlight the potential for massive savings within the government? It's like a signal flare, drawing attention to the areas ripe for disruption and innovation.
A signal flare built on lies, though. That's the problem. How can you trust anything coming out of DOGE if they're starting with a foundation of, well, let's call it optimistic accounting?
Optimistic is being incredibly generous, Otto. It's misleading the public, plain and simple. It erodes trust in government and makes it harder to actually implement real, effective reforms.
But consider the bigger picture. Elon Musk is known for his grand visions, his willingness to challenge the status quo. Maybe, just maybe, he's intentionally pushing the boundaries to force the system to adapt, to become more agile and efficient.
Adapting by firing people and cutting vital programs? Sounds more like breaking the system to me.
And the fact that government lawyers are fighting to keep these RIF reduction in-force plans secret, that's not exactly a sign of transparency, is it?
Secrecy can be a necessary tool for strategic advantage, Sarah. Sometimes you need to operate behind the scenes to achieve your goals, especially when you're facing resistance from entrenched interests.
Entrenched interests like the people who are actually trying to keep workers safe?
I think that it is also worth mentioning the accusation of killing children thrown at the initiative. I believe that Bill Gates has every right to speak his mind on the matter.
And perhaps it is this exact type of opposition that highlights the importance of change. Perhaps people are seeing the end before the change has time to bear its fruit.
And to my understanding, the plan is to digitize the retirement application process. That is taking applications away from those who may not have the digital tools or training available to them, which could result in people not being able to retire due to bureaucratic inefficiency. It seems to benefit the tech savvy over the average person, and that isn't fair.
This is true, but I believe we can solve those issues or have faith in those like Elon Musk to make that happen in due time.
Speaking of average people, did you see that article about the family business in Nashville that might have to move overseas because of the Trump tariffs? A speaker company, Oratone? They've been around for over 60 years, making speakers used to mix albums like Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh, I did see that. It's a really unfortunate example of how these broad stroke policies can hurt small businesses.
Exactly. They're facing tariffs on parts coming in and retaliatory tariffs on finished products going out. The owner said they can't just double the price of their speakers.
But isn't this a catalyst for innovation? For Aratone to find new, more efficient ways to source materials to manufacture their products, to compete in a global market?
Or it's a catalyst for them to move their entire operation to Europe, which is what the owner is considering. How does that protect US jobs like Trump promised?
It doesn't. And it highlights the inherent contradiction in these policies. They're supposed to boost the American economy, but they often end up penalizing American businesses.
He even stated that part of the legacy of the business is building these here. So he clearly wants to stay in the US.
Perhaps this is a lesson for the future. That incentivizing manufacturing here is better than financial punishments, such as tax breaks.
It's a lesson we seem to keep needing to relearn. Targeted support and incentives are almost always more effective than blunt instruments like tariffs.
And what about those cuts to AmeriCorps? I saw that mentioned somewhere that DOGE was cutting their funding at the same time. How does that help anyone?
Sacrifices must be made for the greater good. AmeriCorps' benefits were only reaching a small set of people. In the long run, we must look to a better, more beneficial future.
I see that they seem to be cutting funds for programs designed to support underserved communities, and that's a big problem.
I mean, maybe I'm just a simpleton, but it seems like helping people should be part of making government more efficient.
It should be. And that's where I think DOGE really falls short. It seems to be focused solely on cutting costs without considering the human impact.
But the human impact is always part of the equation. A better system equals a better quality of life for the people. We have to have some faith.
I think I need some hard data on the long-term effects of DOGE before I can feel that. I mean, it's difficult to have faith when there is no transparency.
Exactly. And that's why I'm so critical of DOGE. It's not just about whether it's saving money or not. It's about how it's being implemented, the lack of transparency, and the impact it's having on real people's lives.
But maybe, just maybe, all of this is a necessary growing pain, a chaotic first step towards a more efficient, more effective government. We have to be patient.
Patient while small businesses go under and essential services get cut. I don't know, Jesus. Patience is a luxury a lot of people can't afford right now.
And that's the crux of it, Otto. It's not just about abstract concepts like efficiency. It's about the very real consequences of these policies on everyday lives.
It's a vision for the future, something we have to at least consider. Now, how can DOGE apply to our favorite cryptocurrency? How can this initiative create new markets and opportunities for DOGE-backed initiatives in tracking and incentivizing green energy projects?
Whoa. Hold on. What does this even mean? How do green energy projects incentivize tracking? How does DOGE fit into all of this?
Well, we've already established that DOGE's efficiency initiative has some serious flaws, right?
No!
But let's say, hypothetically, that we could apply the same principles, the drive for efficiency, the use of technology, to green energy.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. Like using a blockchain to track renewable energy credits or something? Is this where we are headed?
Exactly. I imagine a system where every kilowatt of solar energy generated is recorded on a DOGE blockchain. It's completely transparent, verifiable, and immutable. No more fudging the numbers or claiming credits you don't deserve.
So you're talking about using it to track the actual production and consumption of green energy, and maybe even to incentivize people to use it, right? It's a step in the right direction.
Precisely. People can get rewarded for their work. Think of DOGE as loyalty points.
But wouldn't that increase government spending? What with the new technological advances? What happens when that starts failing? Where do we fall back to?
The initial investment would pay for itself in the long run. The system, once created, would be completely self-sustainable.
I am not sure I like this, but I do trust the technology behind blockchain. Tell me more. What does this all mean?
Okay, so imagine a state mandates that every new home built must have solar panels. Right now, how do you really know if that's happening? You rely on inspections, paperwork, all that stuff. But with the DOGE blockchain, every panel installed, every kilowatt generated is tracked automatically. You have real-time data on compliance and energy production.
Okay, I see that. So you're talking about using the technology to enforce existing regulations more effectively. That's a pretty good use case.
Yeah, it cuts out the bureaucracy, cuts out the middleman, and makes sure everyone's playing by the rules. But what about the cost of setting all that up? Who pays for the blockchain infrastructure?
Government investment, private partnerships, or a combination of both. The initial cost would be significant, yes, but the long-term benefits, increased efficiency, reduced fraud, a cleaner environment, would far outweigh the upfront expenses.
And that's when DOGE comes in, when green energy production is incentivized.
Wait, so we are using cryptocurrency to incentivize the people? Wouldn't people just farm green credits from home? What stops people from cheating the system?
This is where the security and transparency of the blockchain come into play. Each transaction, each kilowatt of energy generated, is recorded and verified by a network of computers. Any attempt to manipulate the system would be immediately detected.
I think that there is no sure way to protect something from fraud. With every door built, a new method of circumventing the protection gets invented. With the advent of ChatGPT, this has only been made harder.
True, you can't just leave it be. The system will have to be under constant development and maintenance.
Let's take it a step further. Imagine government-mandated energy efficiency standards for appliances. Right now, those standards are enforced through testing and labeling. But what if we could use a DOGE blockchain to track the energy consumption of every appliance in real time?
That's a little Orwellian, isn't it? Tracking the energy consumption of every toaster and refrigerator?
Yeah, I'm with Sarah on this one. I don't need the government knowing how much energy my fridge is using. That feels like a major invasion of privacy.
It wouldn't be about spying on individuals, Otto. It would be about gathering aggregate data to identify trends, to pinpoint areas where energy efficiency can be improved. It could help manufacturers design more efficient appliances and help consumers make more informed choices.
I'm still not sold on the idea of tracking individual appliances, but I can see the value in using blockchain to verify the energy efficiency ratings of appliances. Make sure manufacturers are actually delivering on their promises.
Yeah, that's a better approach. Focus on transparency and accountability, not surveillance. So like a QR code on the appliance that links to a blockchain record of its energy efficiency rating, verified by a third party.
Exactly. It's all about using technology to create a more transparent, more efficient, and more sustainable system. And that's where DOGE has the potential to really shine.
Okay, I see the potential, but there are still a lot of hurdles to overcome. Scalability, security, regulatory issues. It's not going to be easy.
And let's not forget the digital divide. How do you make sure everyone has access to this technology, regardless of their income or location?
These are all valid concerns, and they need to be addressed thoughtfully. But I believe that the potential benefits of using DOGE to promote green energy are too great to ignore. It's a chance to create a truly sustainable future for all.
I think the concerns about using crypto in areas that relate to government initiatives is warranted. At the end of the day, if it is not feasible or even safe, then it will all come crashing down at a very high cost.
But this is not an excuse to give up and settle and to try and come up with changes that will improve on current systems.
I still stand by the idea of small improvements to the current system. Slow and steady wins the race.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this dive into government efficiency and Dogecoin. It seems that there's a lot to chew on in this topic.
Agreed. From inflated savings to potential green energy tracking, it's a roller coaster of ideas and concerns.
Indeed. But remember, even amidst the chaos, there's always the potential for visionary leadership and transformative change. Until next time.